Hello, guys. It's time for me to explain why I am no compromise on the issue of the Second Amendment. Frankly, I believe that there are only one group of people that should not be allowed to have guns, and that is inmates. Why? Because if you're in prison or jail, you can't go out and get a gun. You know? It's like the whole issue of like, felons shouldn't have weapons and all that stuff. It's like, becoming a felon could be for a whole variety of nonviolent reasons. It could be, opening up somebody else's mail, signing a document in the wrong place, so many things. It's like if you key somebody's car, you know, it could be anything. If you like cause like, it depends on jurisdiction, but the general rule is if it causes anything more than like a certain amount, like $250, that's a felony, vandalism or theft. And it's just ridiculous. Everybody has the right to self-defense. It's just that simple. And some people go, well, are you okay with Ted Bundy having a gun? That's why I know a lot of people would say. It's like, no, I'm not okay with Ted Bundy having a gun because I'm not okay with Ted Bundy being in society at all. He's right where he needs to be, dead. You see, and the world is better off without him, despite the fact that a lot of incels will go, no, it's not. And I'm like, yeah, he is. It's better off that he's dead. That being said, is stricter gun laws would not have stopped him or even slowed him down if some jackass governor really pardoned him. Why? Because he's a serial killer, not a mass murderer. For him, killing a woman with a gun is way too impersonal for him. You know? Anyway, moving on. It's like people say, oh, what about people with mental illness? It's like people with mental illness have a right to self-defense, and most people with mental illness are not violent. Statistics show that they're actually more likely to be victims of abuse than the abuser. And it's you don't know much about mental illness if you say that. It's like, oh, they could commit suicide, and it's like we need better mental health facilities for them, and we need better mental health care. It's just that simple, you know. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of tragedies like Vincent van Gogh's death and things like that. He was an absolute genius, and he took his own life. His life story is a very sad one. And I just wish somebody had been around to help him, because he was a remarkable man. Anyway, that whole thing about, a lot of you are just saying it's like, our founding fathers put the Second Amendment in place to deter a tyrannical government, because it's like when that tyrannical government comes, and it will someday. It came with Rome, for example, and it's come in numerous other places. It came in Germany, it came in Russia, it came in Iran, it came all over the place. And if the population is not prepared to fight against a tyrannical government, then they're just subject to the whims of that government, and there's nothing they can do. Some of you might go, oh, the U.S. military and the police are too advanced, and they have all these weapons, all this training. And I know Biden would go, and for those brave right-wing Americans, you need an F-15 if you're going to fight the government. I'm like, no, you don't. The Viet Cong did that. They won. The Taliban did that. They won. The Mujahideen against the Soviets in Afghanistan did that, and they won. Hezbollah in South Lebanon did that against Israel. They won. The French and the Algerians did that against the French. They won. The Vietnamese did it against the French and won again. And the Chechens did it against the Russians, and you guessed it, they won. So it appears that that theory doesn't hold much water, especially these days post World War II. Insurgencies have beat professional militaries with pretty consistently, you know? And so therefore that argument is trash. And it's like, they say, oh, but what about mass shootings and all that crap? I'm like, that only happens when one side has guns. I think it's like, I heard, I know of two cases where that kind of gets disproven. A long time ago, there was this case where this guy threatened to shoot up a school or something. I can't remember where it was, but it was a long, long time ago, decades ago, in a rural community. A whole bunch of staff and even the students showed up with their hunting rifles. There was no shooting there. And there was a case where in Los Angeles, at this guy's old high school years ago as well, 4 guys got out of their cars and started shooting at the school. And the several staff members, guards, and even some of the students pulled out their guns and returned fire. And the 4 idiots just got in their car and ran away. Total body count, 0. And the only thing I would be in favor of is like maybe laws about like, you can't have a gun on your person if you're drunk or high or whatever, or intoxicated, because that's just reckless endangerment right there, And it's like I refuse to touch a gun if I'm drunk, And it's like, I also believe all drugs should be legalized for recreational use, but this is not a video about drugs. That being said is, and as far as the Founding Fathers go, it's like the Founding Fathers and the people under them, the Continentals, committed multiple felonies. I mean, look at the Boston Tea Party. That was felony damage to property. And it's like, inciting a rebellion, inciting a riot, and all that stuff. They did that. They committed treason against the British, which is a very serious crime that will put you in prison for life these days. Back in those days, they'd get you hung. And they're also accessories to, and if they had lost, they would have been tried as accessories to murder, and as well as actual murder, because they killed so many British redcoats, loyalists, regulars, whatever you want to call them. And if you look at history, you might, if you are like all thin blue line and all that stuff, you probably would have been a redcoat back in those days, because it's just, and that's another issue. You can't trust the police to protect you. They're like, the police can be here in 5 minutes. It's like, you don't want to know what can happen in 5 minutes. A whole lot can happen in 5 minutes, let me tell you. I know that for a fact. That being said, is the police these days have proven insufficient at helping the people in need. Uvalde, Texas was a prime example. Hundreds of cops were out there, and they all did nothing for 77 minutes. And well, they did do something. They stopped people from going in and enabled the mass murderer to slaughter children. They helped him. And there's also Pulse nightclub in Florida, where they were out there for like 3 hours while that gunman went crazy and just, again, slaughtered innocent people. There's also Columbine. Who could forget that example? There's just so many of them. Oh, and let's not forget Parkland, Florida, Stoneman Douglas High. There were 4 cops out there, and none of them... Oh, shit. Damn, that looks stupid. Maybe I should become a cop, because they won't hire you if your IQ's too high. But anyway, well, some departments won't. I know the NYPD won't, or at least didn't. You see, the thing is they stayed out. There were 4 of them out there, and they didn't go in. Law enforcement has been failing us time and time again, miserably. And I would like something to protect myself. Thank you very much. I think every state should be should have a constitutional carry. It should be a Second Amendment sanctuary. I believe that the Gun Control Act of 1968 and the National Firearms Act are both some bullshit. If you can hold it in your hands and fire it, you should be allowed to have it. You know? But it's just that simple. You know, it's like some people would argue, should someone be allowed to have an M1 Abrams? And it's like, we can talk about that. Maybe. Might not be so bad. Because it's like, when the Founding Fathers wrote the Second Amendment, people say, oh, they didn't have frickin', 30-round magazines back then, full auto fire. Well, guess what? They expected you to be packing cannons in your barn, for crying out loud. Artillery pieces, And maybe it would be better if we went back to that. Maybe the government would act a little nicer, would be a little nicer to us, and not try to step all over our liberty like they've been doing I've seen them do my whole life. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Be good, y'all.